Welcome to another weekly Forex forecast, and what a week it has been. The tariffs definitely brought some volatility into the market, and we were looking for a continuation in dollar weakness the previous weeks already. And even though we ended the week in a bearish candle, it is a bearish low test candle, and that could be some kind of a trap, so we have to be a bit careful. If we have a look on the FIB tool, we can see that the wick is more than 50% of the overall candle, and that could also be the start of a bigger reversal. So we have to be careful, even though the bias is still more leaning towards US dollar short technically. We have to take the overall picture into consideration, and therefore I'd like to have a short look on the indices. And the indices on Friday, we can see we ended Friday with a strong DXY. The Swiss francs was holding fairly well, and the Japanese yen was holding fairly okay. And we can see that the commodity currencies, they were really suffering. Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar, and also the Canadian dollar. And then the pound. The pound definitely weaker than a euro, and this is clearly a sign for a risk off. Also the spike in the wicks, and then looking at the markets in general, all the markets sold off aggressively towards the second half of last week, and this is a clear shift in sentiment. So we can see a clear momentum into more a risk-off approach, and during risk-off the safe haven currencies are more in demand. So we will have a bigger demand for Japanese yen, Swiss francs, and also the US dollar, and that makes this setup here, especially with this strong wick, a bit more risky, and we have to be careful and look for very clear price action confirmation before we take any trades, especially after this very strong momentum the last 2 days of the previous week. It still makes sense overall. We still here have a gap. We are still in a downwards momentum run. We are still here positions for a consolidation and for a further move to the downside. However, with this wick and the overall market sentiment, it could also just be the start of a reversal. But we don't mind. We will just trade whatever the market is giving us, and we will just wait for clear price action confirmation. We start here on EURUSD, and of course we see the inverse picture. We also have here this strong high test candle. It's still a bullish candle, but positioned also for a potential sell. Going down to the daily, we can see we closed just above the previous high. We can see it clearer here on the 4 hour, and we wicked through. We fully wicked through. So this is actually quite nice for a bullish continuation. So you can see we have some conflicting price action. So here I'd like to wait for a clear confirmation for a directional move. This here at the moment looks more like a retest of this level here for a continuation long, which would then mean the DXY would continue to sell off. However, if we see that the DXY is starting to gain bullish momentum, then we will see some bearish follow through here, and I will wait for price to clearly break below this high here to the left and then show me some clear price action confirmation in form of a bearish continuation before I would then entertain a short in this area. Pound US dollar is a bit further developed. We can see here on the daily, it's a similar pattern from the positioning. The long would still make sense, but overall with this strong momentum kicking in towards the end of the week, and we did tap into a small liquidity point here. That's the start of this correction here. It's a weak one, but it would make sense for price to sell off. We also here have still on the higher time frame this gap to fill. So, and going down to the 1 hour here straight, we are just sitting on the high here. That's the low here. Sorry, this is the first low of this overall long consolidation here, and we are starting to form some structure here. So I'd like to see a clear structure going down to the 15 minutes to see what we have here. We can see here it's quite some progress here already. We have a small liquidity point here to the left. We have a small near miss, and it actually, going back to the 15-minute, and it would, from a technical point of view, if you just trade the pattern, this would already make sense to just like tap into this high and then continue to sell. But however, how we are positioned here on the low here to the left, I would not entertain this trade. And also when you see, this would be start of Asia session. So yes, we are in a momentum run. It could really continue fast, but I would like to see a bit more structure here before I would entertain something like that. So I would like to see actually a near miss again. And if we then see a very deliberate structure, even something like with the 1, 2, 3 into this small liquidity area, or just a structure which is clearly visible on the 1 hour time frame, then I would entertain a potential short entry in this area, knowing that the position is slightly higher risk because of the positioning here on top of this low to the left. So however, if we miss that, we had some nice trades here actually. If you have a look on the lower time frame, on the 15 minutes, there was some very nice structure. We can see price did definitely respect structure here. We had a nice bear flag continuation after the first impulsive move here, and then a very strong sell-off. We had then a slightly bigger structure here, which was clearly visible again, a 1, 2, 3, which was also visible on the 1 hour time frame. So you can see that price is really respecting structure. So we are now in the third continuation already. So we'd like to see at least a bigger structure than the second one, just to reduce the overall risk. Australian dollar, US dollar, on the weekly time frame, it seems we got the breakout. We were looking for this move for a while. We had this strong impulsive move. We were here in the consolidation, and then we were looking for the next longer move to the downside, and we cleared this low here, so we clearly have only this this wick here to fill. So there's enough room to go. Going down to the 1 hour time frame straight, we can see we are trading below everything significant here to the left, and we had a very strong impulsive move. We had some small consolidation, but it came from nowhere, so there was no entry for me. And then going down to the 15 minutes, let's see what we have. We do have here a small consolidation which sits above the low here to the left, so price does not necessarily have to go back all the way up here. We have another one small liquidity area here, and we have here the potential first base. So I would like to see for price to form a bigger structure, something like that. And if we get such a deliberate 1, 2, 3 into this liquidity area, I would entertain a short in this area, knowing this is a small structure, but it's the first structure which would then be visible on the 1 hour time frame. And if we are in such a strong momentum run, we know they can just go on. So the same goes for New Zealand dollar, US dollar. We are here again, we have a very strong bearish weekly candle with the high test. We filled this week here again. We had a clear turnaround in this area, and we still have this small gap here to the low to fill. So at least there is some room, and it makes sense where we are positioned right now to finish this gap and finish the week. So going down to the 15 minutes, we have a very similar picture here. We have some liquidity areas to the left. And actually, I'd like to see basically the same structure than what we discussed before on Aussie USD. If we get some form of a very deliberate 1, 2, 3 into this very small liquidity area, and since we are in a strong momentum run, then I'm more than happy to entertain a short continuation in this area. There was a trade actually on the 15 minutes last week here. We can see we had the first impulsive move, and here in US dollar we came from a significant area of interest. It's actually a value area here to the left, and then we had this very nice two-touch continuation. I was monitoring that trade and I missed the trade. It's clearly in more detail described in the miss trade, so you can find the link in the description. It's quite an interesting setup. we had an impulsive move here. We had, just to make it clear here, we have a first base, a second base. This one here, that put me off a bit, but in hindsight, that's actually here, it's my time zone. These are the wicks from the swap hour, so I can ignore that. And then it was a very clear two-touch structure here. If we just crop it here, and I was looking for price to come back into the small liquidity area. But we also know if it's the first continuation, very often a two-touch is enough for price to move further down. And I could have actually protected my stop easily just above here with the 20 pip stop, and it would easily be protected. It was in my time zone, and it was a very, very poor miss on my side, and this alone would have banked an easy, probably going out here at around 7%. US dollar yen, again an interesting one. Starting on the weekly time frame, we have overall some conflicting price action, and this is one of these could be a kind of a counter trend trade a bit. We ended the weekly bearish candle on a low test, and we fully wicked through this small area of interest here to the left here, which was the start of the last leg, and a retest of the previous small high here. And this is a bit messy price action here on the 4-hour time frame. Going down to the 1-hour time frame, we can see a bit more here. We had a structure here, and initially I was looking for a continuation short since we are in a momentum run. However, we broke through, there's nothing really to the left, and we are now starting to form a structure, a small structure outside. So going to the 15-minute time frame, I would entertain a potential long here in this area. If we take this one as a base, and then we get a second and a third touch into the end of, sorry, let's try that again, into the end of Asia session, maybe even just early London session on a Monday, and we get a deliberate structure here in this area visible on the 1-hour time frame, then I would entertain a long, because we still have this gap here to fill. That's what we discussed before, into this high here to the left. So it would make sense, technically it would make sense for price to go back up one more time before we then see a steeper sell-off. Euro pound, also a very interesting one. We were looking at this pair on and off. We are in this overall bigger structure. We still have a low here, a gap to fill to the low, but we were looking last week already for this long trade. We did not get an entry, however. On the 1-hour time, on the daily time frame, we can see we finished this overall structure, and we did not close outside structure. So we have here the high to the left we have to consider, and going down straight to the 1-hour time frame. So this could go either way. If we say the overall sentiment is more risk off, that would mean euro pound would continue to rise. So therefore we do have a base here. We can see the base even clearer on the 15 minutes. So we have here a base. Let's clean that up a bit, take that away. And if we get this as a base, which is also in line with the previous high here to the left, my trading view is a bit slow. You see here, that's also in line with this high here to the left. Then we know this could be a retest for a potential long. And if we get a proper second high here and coming back one more time, closing this gap here, and then we get a clear recheck, a reversal candle pattern in this area, I would entertain a long. However, if we see strong bearish momentum breaking below this whole area, which would then mean we are back inside the structure below the high to the left, and then we get a bear flag continuation on the 1-hour visible, then I would change my bias for a short trade. However, again, if we are talking of a risk off sentiment for next week. That would then mean the tendency is for euro pound to the upside. Euro New Zealand dollar is similar on the weekly time frame. We can see we are overextended already. However, we do have this wick to fill here, to this area of, it's actually a value area already, if we can finish and fill this wick here to the left, and we are in a strong bullish momentum run. However, yeah, you can see that we are extended, we are a bit overextended. If we are looking at the last leg just to see if there is still some room to go, and when we take the breakout of the structure, it would exactly line up with the wick fill. So I'm looking now for the move to finish just the last leg, and therefore going to the 1 hour time frame, we can see we have a potential first base here. And if we get a clear 1, 2, 3 structure, I would definitely entertain a long just to finish the move into this high here to the left before we see a potential bigger turnaround. And again, would make sense in an overall risk off sentiment for Euro New Zealand dollar to continue higher. Australia dollar yen, on the weekly time frame, we can see there is some bearish momentum kicking in, and we see that over and over again with these yen pairs. So they are quite corrective for some time, and then they have very, very strong impulsive moves. Then we have a corrective phase for quite some time again, and suddenly they start to drop out. So we are in a potential start of a bearish momentum run going to the 4 hour time frame. Yes, of course, the run is very, very strong already, but it would make sense for price to at least tap into the bigger, very value area here to the left. Let's go back to the daily shortly. We can see that that's the next very significant level, and we are just in the run, and I'm looking for price to finish the run here to the low. And now we can see here that's a bit messy price action already going to the 15 minutes time frame, and we can see we have a nice liquidity area here. It's just kind of a hook point here, however you want to call it, and now it's starting to form a squeeze. It's corrective price action back into this hook point. So I'd like to see for price to form a second base, come back up one more time, and then forming a bigger structure, something like that. That would then be towards end of Asia session, maybe early London session. And if price manages a bigger structure, if that's the first touch, and then we get here a second and retesting. Let me just clean that up again. You get the idea. And if price forms a bigger structure, something like that, retesting the previous low, then it's even better. That will take a bit more time and would then be finished already towards end of London session into New York session. And retesting basically this low here to the left. Where are we? Sorry for that, but my trading view is very slow. Retesting this low here to the left. So the same goes for New Zealand dollar yen. We are in this strong momentum. We are starting on the weekly again. And you can see here again, like it creeped back up, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 very, very strong bearish weeks. And then here we have some corrective price action, and then again corrective price action, and suddenly it starts to drop out very, very aggressively. So even if it looks like a big move already, they can just go on for another 2-3 weeks, and we have the next area inflection point here to the left to worry. And we are looking for exactly the same like we did on Aussie yen. Actually going down to the 15 minutes, we have exactly the same structure. We have a small liquidity area here to the left, and this could be the first base basically for a bear flag pattern. And if we get a bigger structure clearly visible on the 1 hour time frame, then I would definitely entertain a short in this area just to for the momentum run, to participate in this strong momentum run to the downside. Pound Australian dollar as well. We have here a very significant value area here to the left. That's a strong high from 2015 actually, and we are approaching this area, trading outside this previous more significant high as well from 2020. And going down to the daily time frame, we can see we build up quite some volume in this area, and we are now really starting to kick in. And again, looking at the overall risk of sentiment, that would then still mean pound should be stronger than Australian dollar as a commodity currency. So that would mean pound Australian dollar should actually continue to rise, and therefore we are looking for a long continuation. Going down to the 1 hour time frame, we can see we have here a small potential first base here, and I'm just waiting for price to form a bigger structure to enter along in this area. So that's it. That's my watch list for next week. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Bye bye.